Even Chandler, that helped people save a lot of money, has to pick up the phone and call them. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's necessary.
Here's my problem. We've got this database of over 100,000 people. We've got to stay in contact with them, nurture those relationships. The real missing gap is we needed people to get on the phone, make phone calls, convert leads, and that's really where you guys have stepped in. 46% of the leads that we're closing were in-house transfers. The majority of them are ISAs.
So it'd be like 20 plus million in volume that the ISAs have helped put in front of your agents.
Y'all have done a great job to help fill a gap I couldn't do on my own.
All right, folks, we are back, and I've got a really good one for you today. We've got Chandler Crouch out from Texas, here talking about, how he's built an ISA team. And we've been working with Chandler a little over a year now, right? So, this is not, flash in the pan, had a great month. A kind of conversation. Chandler's been working on this for a pretty long time, runs a large team out there. And happy to have him here. So Chandler, why don't you do a quick, the quick intro, who are you? How'd you get into real estate? Tell us about your business. And then I'd love to do a quick segue into, given those things, why was ISA an option for you, a good solution for you? So why don't you go for it?
Sure. Sounds good. Well, I'm happy to be on the podcast, and I appreciate your company. Let's see here. Let's go back. I got into real estate in 2002, and it was I'd set aside a couple weeks where I was going to decide a career path, and I literally just prayed and said, God, what do you want me to do? I went and paid my rent, and the landlord was there to greet me, and he said, hey, we're starting a real estate company. Do you want to join along? And at that time, I was lucky to be sober, and I had hair down to my belly button. So, and I drove a Geo Metro, which, by the way, you can show houses in a Geo Metro. I can, I'm proof. So I've done a bunch of things in real estate. I started off buying and selling houses and flipping them, and did a lot with HUD foreclosures. But in about 2014, I started really focusing on building a team. And so I'm an independent broker owner, never been with Remax or Keller Williams or any of those kind of companies. I've been independent from day one. And just started in 2014 and just thought, I would love to create an opportunity that I wish I would have found starting out, because there's just so much to learn and so much to know. And so, it just seems like, I don't know, it can be hard going on your own. And I've taken a lot of training from all those other companies. Some of those companies have great training. And so I learned a lot and put it into play here. So let's see, that was 2014. In 2017, my business really took a dramatic turn. A lot of companies out there, you kind of have to decide how you're going to grow. You're either going to grow by recruiting agents and counting on them to bring the opportunities, or you're going to create the opportunity and then get the agents to help, take advantage of the opportunity. So I chose the latter. I decided I wanted to create the opportunities and then use that and just grow as big as we need to take advantage of the opportunity. And I'm a long way off. I still need to grow a lot. We've got an amazing amount of opportunity. I've done a great job there. So the way we grew the opportunity was, in 2017, I started looking for ways that we could give back to the community. We were sending out postcards and stuff, spending a lot of money, and I could justify the cost because I knew there was a certain percentage return on money that I would get if I just kept sending them out. But I just thought, man, this is so much money. Surely, if we just take that money and funnel it into solving real world problems for people in our own backyard, if we just take a step in faith, and hopefully people will reciprocate, they'll get an authentic experience with our company, and they'll, come back and buy houses from us. And it was kind of like, a lot of the books on your bookshelf are kind of what formed my mentality on this and my faith and that sort of thing. But this one over here, oh man, all of them. Yeah. I mean, we could talk about those books all day long. I've read every single one of them except I think two, and those are killer books right there for sure. So anyway, the way that we started, I did a number of things like helping the local Girl Scouts and helping, there was a community that didn't have a Facebook group back in the day. And so I was like, well, I'll just create a Facebook group. And I went all in. I ran ads and built the Facebook group and then just kind of stepped out of it because I was just looking to give. That was it. But I did create this environment right in my own backyard with this 4,500 house, community where I could communicate with them. And so I was just looking for the next problem to solve, way to give back. And then somebody had a problem with their property taxes. And in Texas, we don't have a state income tax. We have really high property taxes.
Yeah.
And so it gets everybody's attention, and it's a lot of money, and part of the process in how they tax us is, and this probably happens in most other states, they will assign a value to your home and say, hey, we're going to tax you in proportion to the value of your home. But anybody in real estate knows that the value of your home is kind of a scale. And it kind of depends on the condition of the home, your goals. If you want to sell quick, you better price a little lower. If you want to get top dollar, you have to do certain things. So they allow you the ability to protest the value of the home. And that process to protest it's a little complicated, and you're dealing with the government. So there aren't any real instruction books out there. And if you take the knowledge you have as a realtor and try and implement it to protest, you can get about halfway there. And then there are certain things that they do that are just not normal, and you won't know the unwritten rules unless you've been through it. And I said, you know what, this is something I have some experience with, so I'm going to help people. And that was in 2017. I think we helped 1,200 people the first year, and we just helped people free of
Oh,
charge.
holy
And
cow.
yeah, it was crazy. And then that
That's like
caught the
that number's 10 times larger than I thought you were going to say. Holy cow. In a year,
oh well,
1,200
just
people in
wait.
a year. Hold
It
on.
it was it so that year was probably the second hardest year doing this. Um the so but that was the first year, and then I started protesting for people, and I became acquainted with the problems in the system, and I found some
Okay.
corruption, and I was like, okay. And again,
Uh-huh.
I just pray about it and say, God, what do you want me to do? And I felt like these doors were opening. In fact, I didn't convert enough sales that first year to really justify moving forward. But I I got to be good friends with a state legislator, and I knocked on his door and said, "Hey, how do we eliminate these problems once and for all? How do we like pass a law?" And I didn't pay attention in school, so he had to like teach me like the
How it works.
101 law.
Yeah.
Anyway, I helped get some laws passed. We helped do some
Mm,
reform. We helped expose some corruption, and we've done a lot of different things. And then the number of people that we've helped protest. Uh-oh. Can you still hear me all right?
yeah. Loud and clear.
Okay,
Loud and
my
clear.
screen just messed up, but it's okay. So the number of people that we helped protest just grew and grew and grew, and
Yeah.
then fast forward to this year, we helped 40,000 people this year, free
Oh,
of
wow.
charge, and
Holy cow.
it's just been massive. And so here's my problem, and this is where Gustavo comes in. It's like, okay, we've got this database of over 100,000 people, and most of them have been actual clients. These are not people that, we've helped them for free. We've saved them a bunch of money. They know they can trust us because I didn't start asking for donations until a couple years ago, where it got to a point where, real estate, interest rates went from 3% to like 7% overnight. And
100%.
then on the tax protest side, my numbers were just exploding, and helping 30,000 people, and I'm developing software, and I've got staff hired, and I'm not asking for anything in return. It's like, okay, something's got to break here. Something's going to
Yeah.
break if I don't ask for donations. I did. People started donating, and so here we are. We're in us
Wow.
anyway, and now real estate is just booming. So I've got this massive database of about 100,000 people, and a lot of them know, like, and trust us. But it's just a matter of, we've got to stay in contact with them, and we've got to nurture those relationships. And then on the other side, we're still doing a lot of pay-per-click advertising. And so the real missing gap is we needed people to get on the phone, make phone calls, convert leads, nurture our database, and convert the incoming leads. And so um, I tried pretty much from the get-go hiring my own ISA staff, and I went through so many people. It was a massive learning curve that it ate my lunch. It was a pretty rough, go of it. I've had some good ISAs that I hired personally, but then ran across Gustavo, and I think we we didn't have near the turnover that I had personally, just not knowing how to hire, not knowing how to vet, not knowing how to manage, and then managing that. It's almost an entirely different business all on its own, and that's really where you guys have stepped in, and I think I can breathe now. And there's my intro. So that's how we
Love it.
got in touch. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really unique I don't know if you want to call it lead generation method, marketing method, I think it's something else, right? I think it's a little bit different. True, like really, really hardcore coming from contribution. Without the bells and whistles on that, right? Coming from contribution, you're helping first, right? Service first, value first, and then building the relationship. But you're basing it on value. You're building a
For sure.
relationship on value, right? Because every
Yeah.
time we do advertising as real estate agents, not that advertising doesn't have anything to do with value. It does, right? But it's perceived value, future value, the promise of value, right? And that's par for the course. That's how we all work, right? So you kind of turn that on its head and say, hey, what do I help you now in the here and now? And then we'll build a relationship kind of based on that. So that's crazy. I didn't know the whole story. It's wild, because that's a
Yeah.
great way to build a business. It's not a great way to make a lot of money in a very short amount of time,
Ugh,
though, right? A lot of work.
yeah.
Feels like a farming activity. It feels like you're what is it? You're planting the seed of a tree of a tree whose shade you might not enjoy for a while, right? But
Yeah.
you're planting the seed, diligently planting the seed. So, number one, kudos for that. That sounds like a very, very challenging way to build a business. But when you build something like that, that is built for the long haul. Like that is a brand, that
That was the
is
goal.
loyalty, that's trust, right? Like that's
Yeah.
not an easy thing to build. But holy cow, having 100,000 people in your database that know, like, and trust you, emphasis capital T, trust you, right? Like you help them
Absolutely.
out, with their finances. And and I lived through that time, right? 2017 to 2022, 23, valuations were just like insane. It was crazy, right? And just going higher and higher and higher and higher. And people, it's hard for people to keep up. If you're not in a state like California, that's not just not an issue. Like, oh yeah, the valuations there stay super low for some whatever reason. Everyone else has to deal with this problem, a different version of this problem. How do you keep up? And what if you don't agree with that valuation? What if that valuation is just insane? What do you do? Some people get into a lot of trouble with that, right? Like, holy cow, taxes can become a huge part of their payment. It's just their taxes. And then it's not even that, Chandler. It's the difference from one year to the next when that payment really goes up and you're just not ready for it. Right?
Oh yeah.
Like, what my payment, went up, $800 a month. Like, I didn't budget for that. I'm not ready for that. I can't just absorb like an $800 extra, bill. I've seen cases like that, right? So
Brutal.
knowing there's someone out there, yeah, they can help you a lot with that. That's a great way. That's a great way to start the relationship. That's a great way to start. Not an easy one, but a great way to start it. So you figure this out, right? That's the big problem. That's the big rock. Now you're
Hmm.
getting into the how, right? The execution of, okay, great. You've got this massive list of people, even because, I think this is important for folks because even so, I'm talking to the audience here, right? So even Chandler, that helped people save a lot of money, like probably thousands of dollars a year and over the life of the home, even more, right? Even Chandler has to pick up the phone and call them and get the conversation going. Because even in that case, they might not just come and call you. Hey, Chandler, come list me. Hey, Chandler, I want to buy a home. I want to sell a home. My cousin wants to buy a home or sell a home, right? Like that. Even in that case, you have to reach out and start the conversation. You have to be proactive about that. Imagine the rest of us, Chandler, that don't have anywhere near that relationship, don't have anywhere near that value proposition, right? We're just going on perceived value. We're just going on future value like every other agent. Imagine the work we have to put in to get people to start that conversation, reach out and touch them, because it's not an easy thing to do, but it's necessary. You got to go out there and just reach out and ask the question, hey, I'm calling from Chandler's team. Do you need any help with real estate? I'm not sure what the script would be, but that's what I would assume. Hey, do you need anything for real estate? Does anyone need anything for real estate? We're here to help, right? So something like that, but you still got to ask that question, right?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that I can save people a lot of time. Like you said, yeah, it hasn't been easy. I didn't have any gray hair when I started. Now I've got a, a lot of it. Um, but if there wasn't, if this whole endeavor didn't check a few other boxes for me from just a life purpose kind
Purpose,
of thing,
purpose,
then
100%.
it wouldn't have been worth it. I mean, at the end of the first year, I think we helped like 1,200 people. And I didn't have anything systemized at that point, so my whole team was run ragged, and I was really asking a lot of them. And we were just holding on for dear life, just trying to figure it out. But fast forward, it was like there was a realization at some point that becoming known, which is what a lot of realtors think they need to do, is become
Yeah, of
known. There is some return on investment for that, but
course.
um, that still doesn't create a relationship. And even when you get somebody to know, like, and trust you, that that definitely gets you a long way into a relationship, but it still doesn't accomplish the relationship. The only
100%.
way to convert that into real estate business is to actually specifically focus on converting it into real estate business by nurturing the relationship and staying in touch year round and in an authentic way. They don't people don't want to do business with somebody that they know either transparently say, "Hey, look, I've got to pay the bills. I'm helping you for free with whatever it is." And we got to pay the bills, so I'm calling with my business hat on here today, just seeing, what are your plans in your house? How long you plan on staying there? And then you put it in your database, and you mark a date on it, and then now you've got them in the pipeline somewhere. But you stay in touch with them, and you just let them know.
100%.
Like, I've just been very transparent with everything. Look, we could not afford to do this stuff for free if a certain percentage of people don't come back and buy houses through us. And so I've got to know, like, where are you at? And I would ask them straight up, when you get numbers this big and I'm like fighting for my own survival just to pay the bills. It's like I can't afford to have lengthy conversations with everybody. So I would just ask them straight up, how long do you plan on staying in your home, and how likely are you to use us or to allow us to interview for the job whenever it comes time to hire a realtor? How likely are you to give us that conversation? All I'm looking for is an opportunity, not a guarantee, right? There's no commitments, no anything, no strings attached. It's truly just we're giving to you, and we would hope that you keep us in mind if you've had a good experience with us, and that's it. So yeah, it's like the crucial part is you've got to nurture the relationship. And when you have that a database that big, that's an entire city. So we
There's smaller
still,
towns than that. Like
yeah, it's
100%.
it's a lot of people. It's really wild. But it's like we don't stop advertising. We have to advertise our real estate. Of course, we're advertising our houses to sell them, but we also we do a lot of retargeting and that sort of thing. And so that personal touch, we don't deal with. I love AI, but that human relational component is something that you just can't outsource to a robot. You have to have an authentic person that's trained, knows what they're doing, that can pick up the phone and carry that spirit of contribution and the genuine factors that come in a relationship that a robot just can't give you. So that's my theory on it. Anyway, 2 years from now, I'll be like
We'll
run
see,
by
right? We'll see
robots. I'll
100%.
just anyway.
100%. Yeah, and that's a great way to put it, because the technology is there to make automated outreach, even automated calls, even, all these chatbots and AI power, I think is going to change things a lot. As we're recording this, right? This is, the fall of 2025. Uh, that's not enough. Those tools, and there's great tools out there, like the Ylopos and the Fellows and the Shilohs and all these different tech tools. They're
I
great.
love the
What
fact that you're on top of this stuff too, by the way.
Oh,
I just want to
100%.
say
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and because we've deployed this in the field. No, this is not theoretical. We've
Yeah.
deployed it. And the funny thing about AI that we discovered is that if you just look at the numbers, Chandler, you just look at conversion rate, it is currently this year as good as, I would say, a mediocre, middle of the road ISA. It's as good as that. The
Mm.
difference is it's 24/7, right? So, would so the productivity can be really, really high. The problem is, right? It's not that. It's not conversion rate with AI. It is when people talk to an AI. People know this now. The consumer AI has been out of the bottle for 2.5, almost 3 years now, right? When they realize they're talking to an AI bot, one of two things happens, right? And none of them are good. They kind of realize it. Well, you're a bot. Let's see if I can get something useful out of it. You can tell, and that's one, right? They kind of settle for it. And the other thing that can happen is that they're just not happy. and they can be very vocal about that, right? It's a vocal minority, and not people don't get, people don't get mad at robots that much, right? But so you get them at the wrong time. It's the 15th bot they talk to that day, maybe, and they're just
Hmm.
not happy about it. And in fact, they might even hang up the phone saying, "Hey, if it's worth it to you, have a real person call me." That's literally what they will say, right? The people that are really
Mm.
mad about it, and they'll be vocal about it. And as a real estate agent, you hear that one time, and that's the end of your AI bot experience, right? That's it. Like, you're not, like, I don't want people to feel that way, like 100%. And not to say that calling with ISAs, you can have bad calls, they could be upset. That can always happen. I've never seen an agent cancel a whole project because he got one bad call before AI.
Mm.
AI produced that. Like, the
How
backlash
about
is
that?
real, right? So as it gets better, things will change for sure. All new technology is rough around the edges. I'm not a AI doomer by any stretch, but there's a difference right now, and it's a significant difference. And people, the perception, the brand, can be damaged by that, right? And again, like I said, vocal minority, but agents protect their brand like that, like,
Mm.
like nothing else. Like, it's crazy. And they don't want that associate, that feeling, that frustration, the AI slop, AI bot. Oh, I'm going, yo, so the AI had to call me. You weren't, I'm not important enough to have you call me. There's a little bit of that there, and people don't want to be associated with that. So,
So
but there's a difference.
when y'all are
Yeah.
employing it, do you let the consumer know that they're dealing with AI, or
Yeah.
y'all you do? Okay.
No, it's a compliance thing. We have to, within the first 30 seconds. The
Oh,
same way you're telling them it's on a
okay.
recorded line, you have to tell them it's
Interesting.
an AI assistant. So yeah, 100%. Some people will like miss that. I mean, it's very easy. Like, it's a call. They might not pay attention. They might think it's a real. There's a percentage of people think it's a real
Mm.
person. So small one, right? Older folks. You know what I mean? So not everyone will realize it, but 80% of people will tell right off the bat that or they just listen to the call. You have to disclose it, right? Tell them, hey, this is and they have to consent to that, right? You have to, hey, you have to consent to being called by it. It's technically a
Yeah.
robocall, right? So
Right.
you have
Yeah.
to,
And they're
consent
cracking
to
down
opt
even
in.
more. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Well,
100%. That's going to be
I'm
huge.
like you though. I think the AI definitely has a place. If you ignore it, you're ignoring it at your own peril.
Sure.
And humans still have a place. And it's like if if the technology was good enough for people to feel comfortable with, I mean, we've had Zillow's estimates and access
Yeah.
to as much information, as much how to as anybody could ever want on how to sell a house, that sort of thing. But people still hire realtors because they want somebody they can trust. They want somebody that's been doing it. And I think that they also want somebody that knows how to use the tools at their disposal and the cutting edge technology and know how to use it, because it's just like a hammer. You can use it for destruction or, something to build something beautiful. And so I love that you're open to it, testing. I'm doing the same thing. At the same time, I think that uh, that people will crave human interaction more and more. So I think there's going to be a value to the more in person we can
It's
get, the better.
it's
And
going
that's
to
just
be a
another
premium.
gamble. Yeah.
An analyst out of the industry just put out this thing saying certified AI free. AI, AI free, and he's
Sure.
promoting that. And I go, well, that's completely the opposite of where I thought people would go. But he's using that as like a premium brand, hey, I'm 100% certified. As his blog posts and their interactions and the chats, like, this is, we're 100% AI free. And I thought that was interesting. That might be a thing, might not, right? Who knows? But you're trying to position yourself as not as the same as every other agent. No, 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 we are premium.
Yeah.
Like, we don't. Those other guys are using the bots. We are actually real people. If you want to talk to a real person, give us a call. So I think there's something to that. And I think it's valuable. But regardless of the perception or what I think about it, I think the numbers don't lie, right? Like, I think the numbers still there. I think a good person on the phone will outperform. Like side by side, it's still not close. It's just that the AI can just do some crazy things on productivity, right? I think it's crazy, but it'll be interesting to see where this goes, right? This is right now, like I said, fall of 2025. We'll see in a year, two, three, where things are in the future. But kind of getting back to your case, Chandler. So just to make sure I understand the workflow, you do this, this outreach. People come to you, people know you as providing this service, helping them, make this protest, making sure that they can bring down or get the chance of bringing down their property taxes a little bit, and they get into your database. And as you're describing, as they go in through that process, you ask them, hey, is this like your forever home? Are you thinking of making a move at some point, or is this like your forever home? What's going on? And they'll give you like a number. Oh, I'm a couple years out, or once my kids graduate, or I want to go back to California, or I want to go to Arizona. I mean, something about it, right? And they get put in your database. What is the process after that? And how do the ISAs help with that process? Do they just wait until that date comes along? They're tagged in the database for, 3 years and someone's going to call them in 3 years? Or what's the typical process?
Well, we've got multiple ISAs, so and everybody has their own strength. So we try to we try to what is it called? Partition off the incoming calls from the outbound, because somebody that's good at outbound, like, you can control your schedule, you can hammer out a ton of numbers, and you can really crank it out that way. For inbound, you've kind of got to be in reaction mode, and the numbers aren't going to be quite as high. You're not going to have, like outbound, you got a bunch of dials going to voicemail, and that's where bad numbers, that sort of inbound, you don't have that. So that's one thing. And so then the other thing that we do that we're using the ISAs for quite a bit now is part of the value proposition I have for agents in our company is that I give them first crack at incoming leads coming into our system. So
They
as
get
we're
the
doing
first shot.
advertising, yeah, just doing the regular old pay-per-click advertising, um, primarily through Google, and Bing has been pretty good for us for some reason. But we hold the agents accountable very strictly on 5-minute response time. The lead comes in, speed to lead, you got to get them in 5 minutes. And then the agent deals with them for the first 24 hours. But then I've noticed that the agent's ability to stick with the follow-up long term, at least for the first 14 days or so, it just falls off the shelf, and it's universal. So it's like the if you're
An
going to try and do
uncontacted lead, right?
everything, that
So, someone
follow-up
that
is, yeah,
Yeah, someone that isn't responsive, it's really tough for them to keep trying and then keep
yeah.
trying and then call them again. And then 3 days later, call them again. It's a tall order. I hear you.
Absolutely. Especially when you're out showing houses, you're going to closings, you're writing contracts, and then you're going to keep up with this tedious follow-up. It's kind of like, really, I want the agents to be able to scrape the cream off the top, and then that lead goes to our ISAs, and the ISAs have like you've probably heard of it, the 10 days of pain kind of mentality, where they're hitting them, text, email, call, and hitting them from different angles over the next 14 days. And then after that, we set them on a long-term drip if they don't respond. But that's where the ISAs are really focused on right now, because these are people showing motivation. And then I've got another team of
Now,
people that are just chewing through numbers on working the database, and it's just like farming 101. It's just
love it.
calling, saying hi, looking for nothing, nothing in return, really adding value, staying in touch, just trying to nurture those relationships. I've noticed it seems like the ISAs are really uh, more suited for converting leads, and not necessarily that nurturing aspect, which is good, because the converting leads is a higher skill level position, so I don't have the ability to monitor calls or whatever, review calls, and do that kind of role play stuff that you guys help out with quite a bit. And so the nurturing aspect, if you've got somebody with a big heart and they're not afraid of the phone, and they can sit there in a seat and just dial out, then you just don't have to have somebody quite as skilled as an ISA do that. They don't have to have the real estate knowledge. They just have to know how to connect with somebody and that sort of thing. So, but I've tried both, but I know
Okay.
that's kind of like answers all over the place, but that's what we're doing. We're just doing multiple things.
Love it. I love it, right? Because you've got two pillars of your business. One is the actionable people that are inquiring now, right? Real estate leads, so that pay per click on search engines coming in. You got to respond right away. I love that you involve your team though, right? The team gets first crack, so that's a big value add. I think that's a great way to people insert agents
Well,
into the process, and ISAs are the support, right? I think that's because agents are like world class at that first call. I found
they're
they're
great.
great at it. They're
Yeah.
great at it. It's
Some of them, some of them are horrible, but some of them are
well,
amazing.
true.
Yeah,
But that third through ninth call is like that's tough. It's tough for agents to make consistently, and that's where you've built an ISA team to support that, right? It's a value add for
hmm
your team, for your brokerage. Like, hey, we give you, like you said, scrape the cream off the top, and we'll support you to get more of those people back, right? And to reach out to them,
exactly.
get them on the calendar, transfer them over to you, like hand them off, whatever that handoff happens to be. We help you, we
Exactly.
support you with that piece. And on top of that, you've got like I said, this massive, this huge database. They're just trying to, eat the elephant, right? Like, little bit by bit, trying to get people, reach out to everyone, little by little, right? Talk to people and continue those relationships. That's a longer term play. It's always a longer term play.
Yeah.
Farming is a longer term play, 100%. So you're trying to balance it out. I would assume, right? The inbound internet leads are like more actionable, and then as you farm and just find people that are thinking of doing something. It could be 6 months from now, it could be a year from now, but you're identifying them as hand raisers in the database, and the team is kind of doing both those roles: the farming, identifying hand raiser, and then the converting those fresh inbounds and handing them off to agents just that are more actionable. So both you got an eye on the short term and an eye on the long term. I think that's a really
Absolutely.
smart play.
Yeah.
I
Well,
I,
I
I
just
love
want to
that.
mention one other thing. Like the whole ISA setup, some of that has come with just like solving problems and out of necessity. Out just from a principal standpoint, I want the agents to have that value proposition of being able to get first crack at them because I want them to have leads, but it doesn't do us any good if we're not converting them. And the ISAs, though, if the ISAs were getting the first shot at the leads, then I'd have to staff an ISA from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And that's just not practical either. So the ISAs get to have a consistent schedule. They get to leave work at work, go home, do whatever they want to do in their off time, and then come back. And they're masters at consistency. So when for them to have an 8 to 5 schedule and hit those leads systematically Monday through Friday, it just makes sense to arrange it that way because that's something that the agent couldn't do. So that it's a very complementary kind of arrangement like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. 100%. You're absolutely right. Right. Kind of managing those two, everything from the scheduling, right? The scheduling and the person and everything. I think you find a way to kind of balance it out really, really well. I love that. So, Chandler, actually, one question before that: tech stack. What do you have a massive database, you've got, nurturing going on, you've got internet inbounds coming in. What's your tech stack look? What's your CRM? Any kind of tools you'd recommend? Because look, as you guys are doing a really good job.
Sure. Yeah. I I started using Google products. So Google does our email, and we've
Mm,
all got Google Drive and that sort of thing. It's great because I don't have to buy a license for each person, and so that works really well.
love it.
Then for CRM, we use Lofty,
Mm,
which was Chime before. I've tried a number of CRMs. I've tried Real Geeks. I've tried Follow Up Boss. Lofty just it has what we need and it's affordable. It's got a dialer in there, so there are
love it.
a lot of good components for Lofty. Let's see what other components. I use Ring Central for voice over IP phone system that kind
Love
of
it.
it bridges between Lofty and making the calls that way. What kind of technology am I leaving out here? We try to keep things
Uh,
pretty simple.
yeah,
I
and your
use a lot of
website is
Google
pretty.
Sheets, spreadsheets for a lot of stuff, for a lot of tracking. Just going the
100%.
old-fashioned way, if I'm all about does it work, and
Yeah.
and a lot of times bells and whistles sometimes they just get in the way. So,
Yeah, 100%. I love that. Yeah, I think Lofty as a CRM is probably one of the top ones. So you use their integrated website, like so when people come in through pay per click, they land on your Lofty website and they register the whole thing. So love that.
yep, you got it.
Cool,
Now, we
awesome.
do like the tax protest stuff is all custom, and that's a separate
Yeah,
deal.
sounds like it.
But
Yeah,
yeah, for real
100%.
estate, it's all through Lofty. I am a believer in look if they've got these tools, like we used to use Follow Up Boss in conjunction with our CRM, and it was like it because a lot the follow bus has some great tools, but I was like, if we just are going to use Lofty to the maximum we can, and there's so many functions there that we're not using. Like I do everything I can to bend to use the technology for its intended purpose, and the more we can do that and not go against the grain and try and create all these workarounds and stuff, the simpler life is, and the better, more efficient that we run things typically. So
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and Lofty has the advantage of being more of an all-in-one, more than stuff like
right,
a tool like Follow Boss is. Follow Boss like to build the plug stuff in. Lofty's like, you know what? This is all you need. This is the
yeah.
tool you're gonna need. So I like that aspect of it too, right? It's a great tool. Both of them are really good tools. So
Yeah, it
but you're
doesn't
right.
really matter.
The
Honestly, it
one the
doesn't
one you
matter.
use to the
Yeah,
max, the one you use
that's
to the
it. That's
max
it.
and learn how to use properly, that's the one you're gonna have success with, right?
Absolutely.
100%. I like
Yeah.
these tools, Lofty, Follow Boss. They're number like I feel like they're number one and two in this space for a reason. They're built for
Yeah.
teams, like for people that have like distributed teams. They're really, really good at that, and they're like best in class at helping people, distribute the work inbound internet leads. So yeah, I think you can't go wrong with either of
Yeah.
those options. So, and Chandler, big question. What have been the results so far? You've been working on this for a year, a lot of trial and error for sure, figuring out systems, where to focus your ISAs, what have been the results so far, for the team, for the business? How do you measure that? How do you look at that question?
Well, you got to measure it with money, but I mean that's part of it. But my again, my angle on this has been uh, a lot of it was just holding on for dear life. And so while the property tax thing was just exploding, I wasn't able to focus on the real estate stuff as much as I would have wanted to really make sure that we're getting that opportunity to convert into sales. So I've got a pretty small team for me. About 6 agents do the majority of our business. I think we have about 13 or so in total. And then you know how it goes. You've got some people are kind of coming and going and streaky and that sort of thing. We've got a
For
lot
sure.
of staff. I couldn't even tell you how many staff we have. Like it's just not a number. I hired 2 people last week. So I'm not afraid of bringing on overhead with staff. I value people, good people. And so with that, I think this year we're somewhere around like $45 million in volume. I think it's 120, 130 deals or so, somewhere in that. I've got all of here. Let's see here. Um, I've got other stats. The let's see here. Yeah, 135 deals at 45 million.
Okay.
Um, then I think that one of the things that we do is we measure our lead source a couple different ways. Um, doing the things that I've done, I've gotten on the news a handful of times. And so then you've got Facebook, nextdoor.com, Google, the pay-per-click stuff, and then you've got the tax protest stuff. But the tax protest stuff, like they end up on my website and they sign up on my website because somebody shared my website on Facebook. So you kind of have like, okay, well, it's Facebook, but it's also tax protest, and that's the source. But really, once you get as many people in the database as we've got, it's kind of like, well, you've got Sphere, you've got what we call lead day, which are the incoming leads, and then you've got handoffs, which the handoffs is anybody in our team we're actively working these leads, we're staying in touch with the database. When we take that lead and we hand it to an agent. So that's another level of tracking that we do. And I think that one really points towards where the ISA comes in. And
Gotcha.
and it's also kind of points towards where the tax protest stuff is at. Because like once they're a lead in our system, that we're doing retargeting, they're signing up different ways. We're touching them a bunch of different ways. And so it's kind of like you can't really say it's Facebook or a phone call or whatever. So to say that, let's see here, we've got 46% of the leads that we're closing were in-house transfers. So whether it's
Wow.
an ISA or somebody else on the team, the majority of them
Wow.
are ISAs. Um,
Yeah.
and it's just, it's just,
So it'd be like 20 plus million in volume, that the ISAs have helped put in front of your agents. Like get in front, boom, here it is.
yeah,
Here it is. Hand raiser, hand raiser, hand raiser. Get in front of them. Do it. I
yeah.
love it.
And
That's
then,
awesome.
and then
Massive number.
we do another level of tracking where we want to, anytime a deal closes, we want to look back and say, well, what really resulted in that sale? Was it somebody just called in and said, "Hey, y'all been helping me for years, and now I want you to list my house"? That definitely
Come list
happens.
me. Come list me, right? Yeah. I love
Yeah,
those. I love those.
man, it's awesome. But then we also have those leads that we're nurturing. We're doing like attempting to contact them for 6 months, and then all of a sudden we get in contact with them. Well, the number of attempts that go into a sale, that's something that we look at too. I don't have that number handy for you, but that's where the ISAs have come into help a
Love
whole
it.
lot. That's that long-term follow-up piece. It's just really hard to do if you don't have somebody dedicated to just doing that one job, So
Yeah, 100%.
yeah,
In general, I see a lot of, because every real estate team has a version of this problem. Like every single one, whether it's your
yeah,
personal database, you've built one from advertising, you've built one through ads, whatever it is, you've got a version of this problem. And I see a lot of team leaders kind of bagging their head against the wall because they expect their agents to do the whole process. They want them to do that initial response 24/7, and they want them to do the 14 days, and they want them to do the long-term nurture, and they want them to call the appointments didn't show up from last month. And it's a lot, right?
It's a
We
lot.
expect the agents to do a lot. They have to be the telemarketer, and they have to be the white glove concierge, and they've got to be the negotiator, and they got to be the marketing expert, and the new build construction expert. So there's a lot of hats you want them to wear. I think you guys have done a really good job, realizing that, hey, this hat of the telemarketer, the phone, guy, maybe this point is not your highest and best use, right? Not the first shot for sure, and that ultimately converting them to an appointment is 100%. But everything else between those two calls, those two really high intent conversion calls, everything in the middle, you guys have added a lot of value by handing it off to someone else, right? Taking it off their plate, making sure it gets done systematically, like just making it intentional, and providing them a lot of value. I think you guys have done a really, really good job at that, providing a lot of value. And then your local community, holy cow, right? You must be pretty well known, because I personally, I talk to a lot of agents, every week, every year, all the time. I haven't heard of anyone doing this at scale because it's so hard, probably, right? Like,
It's
oh my God, it'd
crazy.
be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
they
got
do
to you
it.
got you got to be a little insane. Yeah.
A glutton for punishment, right? So, but like you said, without purpose, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, why would someone do something like this if they didn't have it in their heart to do it, to help out, right, to be a resource for people? So kudos on that. So, last question, if someone were considering, right, they have, like I said, every real estate team, every brokerage has a version of this problem. They're considering bringing in an ISA to help them solve that problem, but they're on the fence. They've tried it before, it didn't work out. They might have tried another company, it didn't work out. What would you say to them if they're thinking about it, on the fence on that decision?
Well, number one is like just I'm a believer in thinking long term. So it's not a band-aid fix, and it's one of those things where I don't know. It's like it, whether it's working with an ISA or or a lead generation like idea or whatever. If you're not going to do it for a good long while and really give it a shot, then you can't say that it didn't work. If you're switching gears too fast, then you just won't know. So I would just say this, like you just mapped out really well, like how much work it is to expect one agent to do everything. Well, when you start really piecing it out and looking at how much work is involved in all of this stuff, it's too much work for me to start and manage an ISA department. And I've tried. I just think that you guys have been a huge solution to that, and you provide training and ongoing support and accountability and that sort of thing. And the ISAs are y'all's employees. Like it's not something that I'm accountable for. We're effectively paying you guys referral fees for this stuff. I just think if you can find somebody to do the job really well, I could care less if y'all are employees in my company or employees at your company. If somebody's doing a great job, I just want to recognize that and then utilize that and leverage through that so that we can continue focused on all the other things that we're doing. So I would just say, if somebody hadn't given you a shot, I would definitely give it a shot. I've tried so many different things. This is the one thing that's lasted the longest, and it's only because you guys have things figured out on a level beyond what I was able to figure out on my own. But you got to give it a long, hard shot. And I'll also say this. Sorry, I know this is more than you asked for. Um, for so long, I was focused on cost per lead, but you've got to focus on return on investment. And going cheap isn't necessarily the answer. It doesn't mean spending money is the answer. It's just sometimes it takes an investment, whether it's through an ISA team or a higher quality lead, to get to the closing table. And I'm constantly having to relearn that lesson because I am cheap, but it's only because I've run across you guys that I know what a quality ISA program is like, and so y'all have done a great job to help fill a gap I couldn't do on my own. So anyway, there's it. Thank you.
Love it. I love it. Awesome. Chandler,
Yep.
Thanks for the kind words. I appreciate you. Thanks for making the time. Thank you so much. Right. And, for everyone out there, what is, if people want to reach out, maybe learn more about what you're doing, or maybe, hey, they want to protest their property taxes. What's the best way to reach out to you, Chandler?
Well, if you want to protest, we're only doing it in Tarrant County right now. We hope to expand. We just kind of had our hands full in Tarrant County. But I would say, yeah, if anybody has questions, feel free to just shoot me an email, chandler@chandlercrouch.com. That's it. So
Awesome.
happy to talk. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.